For a long time, those who had large tracts of land dominated agriculture. But slowly by slowly, as we advance into this century, we are coming to appreciate that agriculture is not relying solely on the amount of land that someone has or the amount of animal that the person has, but rather even small-scale farmers can start small and they can grow and they can produce as much as those who have large tracts of land.
Farmers are using things such as drones, autonomous plows, crop sprayers that can tell the difference using AI between a weed and a crop. And a lot of them are using data collection to just suck up all of the information from the farm. John Deere is...
I'll pause for a moment and ask you to subscribe to this channel and to comment with regard to the things that are driving agriculture today. Agriculture is not just about producing food. It is about efficiency in production and also taking care of the environment. When you look at the history of agriculture, we appreciate that those who've come before us, the various efforts that have placed, the innovation that were done, were all geared towards making production better, efficient, and improved production to supply humanity with sufficient food. I want to compare two different times during the agrarian revolution and the AI revolution that we live in today. When you look at the agrarian revolution, those who were there were trying to use and innovate tools and machines that could help them to increase production. It is during this time that we invented the machines that are used to plant and also the tractors that are used to till the land. At that time, the challenge was the amount of food that is being produced. If you look at the years before that time, you appreciate that humanity used to dig with their hands, and the amount of space and land that they could dig was relatively small, and therefore the production was also not as much.
Farmers have traditionally relied upon generational wisdom and experience to make decisions on the field.
So this is where AI comes in. What AI does is, it looks at that data that is coming from farm. It looks at what crop the farmer is growing, what is the requirement of the crop in that stage, and it basically uses all these information and then processes it and then produces certain outcome in a very simple language and manner that farmers can understand.
But then they tried to improve and to innovate tools that could help them to expand the mass of land that they could till, and therefore tractors begin to emerge. Humanity worked so hard to bring machines. So mechanization was the key during this time in increasing food production. But that has happened for a long time until we have abused them. Today we have a lot of tractors, we have a lot of things, and we still have problems with regard to food. The amount of waste that we have today, when you go to various markets, you find a heap of food that has been left to decompose, yet there's part of this world that doesn't have food. And therefore, as we live in the era of AI, we are trying now to address this issue of increasing efficiency with regard to the amount of food that we produce.
So what the driver sees in the cab is real-time footage of what's happening. The crop that's there and the weeds that we are trying to remove. The driver sees the machine analyzing the data and then taking the shot. You're seeing decisions made in real time.
AI now is replacing, not entirely, but is ensuring that the machines that were invented before it are now driven well by using of data. And so not only are we using machines that are doing the physical work that humanity used to do in digging the land, but we realize that farmers today are using tools like drones, smart apps, and also predictive algorithms that are helping them to shape agriculture. And so we are replacing guesswork with guesswork as a method of farming with decisions that are backed with the data. Because if you look back, farmers used to have the culture of looking at what people are doing and then following up on what they are doing and copying them to increase production.
Can artificial intelligence be the answer? This vineyard in southern India is testing it out by using devices that help remove guesswork from farming.
So if you look at the whole system, On the top you have macroclimatic sensors which measures rainfall and wind related events, and then you have solar sensors which measure solar exposure or sunlight exposure to the crop. Then you have sensors like leaf wetness and temperature and humidity which measures moisture on the leaf. All that measurement comes to the brain of the system, and
The device uses artificial intelligence to analyze the data collected by these sensors.
We cannot copy each other's farmers today. My soil is different from your soil, your animal is different from mine, and therefore I have to use the data that relates with my farm to ensure that the production that we are having as a farmers is better than what my neighbor is having. So I'm not competing my neighbor, but I'm improving my own production by looking at the inputs that I have, by looking at all various factors that are affecting production within my own farm. Another thing that has also changed is with regard to the type of labor that is being used. Agriculture used to rely on sweat. I had to sweat as I dig the land, I had to sweat as I use machines, I had to sweat as I use various tools. But today we are not relying heavily on sweat to increase production. Rather, we are using smart items like drones, which I've just said, to help us to reduce the amount of work that I'm doing physically as a farmer.
Many farmers struggle with a shortage of workers, especially for jobs like sorting potatoes. It's tough, dirty work that few people want to do. That's where AI software comes in. It detects rocks, clumps of soil, and rotten potatoes, and removes them faster than any person could.
I'll pause for a moment and ask you to subscribe to this channel and to comment with regard to the things that are driving agriculture today. If labor is focused mainly with the amount of sweat that is falling on the ground as work is being done, then it means we have to again ensure that this high population that is working is supported effectively. But when it comes to the era of AI, we are not just focusing on the sweat and the people that are coming to work, but rather we are focusing on the efficiency of the tools that these workers are using to boost production and to ensure that we can do the work we are doing much faster. I believe that if I have 100 acres of land today, I can effectively use one drone to inspect my farm and to make a decision that is going to boost production than if I was going to employ 10 people to do the same work. And therefore we come to appreciate that the amount of labor that is being used today has shifted a little bit from heavily relying on human and paperwork to using digital tools that are helping us to have real-time decision making and also using fewer people to drive change. What about the decisions that we are making with regard to the era that we live in today? The decisions that farmers today are making is based on what is happening currently. If you are in Kenya, for instance, you realize that initially our parents used to tell us, plant maize in the month of April and wait and harvest them later on in October. And maybe in November or even in that October, there's another season that people plant. So it was based on culture. That culturally, there are months that we plant, there are months that we harvest. But today, because of various changes that have happened, the climate change, we cannot do farming as we used to do. And therefore, we have to do or make decisions that are real time.
And in the future, everybody can become a grower with the right technology in every place in the world.
We are not using the information that was there 10 years ago, the culture, but rather we are using real-time information to make decisions that we have today. And therefore, as farmers, it is important for us to appreciate that we need to use real-time information. The data that we get has to be timely and they have to be used at that time to ensure that farmers can program their production effectively. We are not using the information that was there 10 years ago, the culture, but rather we are using real-time information to make decisions that we have today. And therefore, as farmers, it is important for us to appreciate that we need to use real-time information. The data that we get has to be timely and they have to be used at that time to ensure that farmers can program their production effectively.
What's the right time of year for me to begin setting up my raised bed nursery?
The best time to start setting up your raised bed nursery for transplanting paddy saplings.
Another aspect that has also changed is with regard to productivity. You see, farmers have always been competing with the various inputs that they use. You look at farmers and they say, if a farmer is going to use fertilizer in their production, then they're not going to get as much, they're going to defeat a farmer who is not using fertilizer, which means those farmers that are applying fertilizer in their production are likely to get more yields compared to those who do not. And even as we continue with that space in which the more inputs and the better inputs that you have, the higher the yields, we've reached a point in which in agriculture we said there's a law that we call the law of diminishing return. It gets to a point whereby it is not going to matter the amount of fertilizer that you keep to apply, because there comes a point when if you continue to increase the amount of fertilizer that you are applying to your crops, if it is maize, then there is the maximum level beyond which an additional amount of fertilizer that is being applied does not result in high yield. It is in this space that therefore artificial intelligence is coming to help farmers so that they can make decisions that are prompt, they can minimize waste, and they can also be in a position to connect with each other and to sell their produce.
Data-driven farming does promise profitability, but it's going to take considerable time and investment.
And therefore, it's not about large-scale farming. It is about effective use of resources that we have. A farmer may have 10 animals, but the amount of milk that they're producing from these 10 animals is much more than a farmer who has 50 animals and they are doing contemporary or the casual farming that has been there for a long time. What does this tell us? It is telling us that the information that I have is going to help me to decide on the investment that I'm going to make that will give me high yield. And my competition therefore is not going to be based on the amount of land that I have or the space that is available, but rather the knowledge that I have is what is going to help me to increase production. And therefore at this time, the most critical thing for any farmer that exists is to ensure that we can access data and we can use data. Whoever has knowledge today is at a better place compared to a person that has large skills. Today, a new person can start farming without the history of farming in their family, because data is available today, information can be accessed by anyone today, and we can improve production based on this information that is availed to us at this time. Finally, the vision of farming during agrarian revolution is very different from the vision that farmers today have. Initially, the vision was to increase food production to feed the population that was multiplying, because as that was happening, the agrarian revolution as it was happening, it also supported industrial revolution. People were moving to town, and as they moved to town, they provided labor for those industries that were emerging at that time. But today again, we talk about pollution that is so serious, and people have to come again home to the remote areas that we had left. And this changes the vision from production that is massive to an ecosystem that is alive. We're not just farming today to increase food production, but we're also asking ourselves, are we producing our food in a sustainable way? Are we providing our food in a manner that the environment is going to appreciate the work that we are doing and continue to thrive despite the continuous activities that we are doing on our space? Therefore, as farmers, we need to ask ourselves, the investment that I'm trying to do, is it healthy to the environment? How can I know if it's healthy to the environment? I can test using the tools that are available. There are various aspects that have been done in agriculture, and there are various tools that exist today that can help a farmer to know that the type of farming that they're doing is not sustainable, and therefore they can shift it. So farming today is about sustainability. We need to sustain the environment. I can keep my animals and plant crops and ensure that the crops I plant can feed my animals, and my animals provide manure to feed my crops, and therefore this is a cycle that is going to ensure that there's continuity and sustainability with regard to production. For that reason, I believe that AI is an advancement with regard to what has been happening before, and providing us with an environment where production can be high and also it can be effective, minimizing the losses and also reducing the challenges that farmers have today. Let us continue farming. Let us embrace the new technologies that exist in our farming, because various countries are trying to improve their production with regard to technology. How we control weeds, for example, we'll appreciate that today we even use lasers and even brutal force to ensure that specific weeds are eliminated and the farm is not disrupted continuously.